So the next session coming up, which is all about the power of AI, ML, APIs and its impact on the quality assurance group. We have Veeresh and Arun with us. They both are serving for Amadeus Software Labs India Private Limited. Just to introduce both of you. First of all, hi Veeresh. Hi Arun. I hope you
Hello,
both are
hope
there.
you can hear us.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Great.
Hello. Yeah. And then just to introduce both of them, Veeresh is a technology leader with around 18 years of experience spanning across various domains. Currently, he is in the role of Senior Director Engineering at Amadeus. He has contributed to many initiatives. He is a speaker, author, also a mentor at NASSCOM's W2RT program and mentor at NUM's Startup Accelerator program. Uh, when it comes to Arun, Arun is a cloud and DevOps evangelist, currently in the role of Director Engineering at Amadeus Lab. And he's helping the company to transform the development processes and bringing in the cultural changes for agile, cloud, open source, automation, DevOps, all the kind of industry 4.0 or 5.0 kind of initiatives and their adoptions. And he has spoken in various large conferences and organized multiple technology meetups. Please feel free to search them on LinkedIn and get into the contact of them, and then probably you can get to see about the speaker profiles at these links. And with this introduction, probably I would like to hand it over to both of you so that you can carry on. Welcome to both of you, and then please get started.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hope you can see my screen as well. Okay. Hello, everyone. Before I introduce myself, the bit that I would want to, and obviously Veeresh, I'll get to the introduction part. Hopefully, everyone is doing well and safe. I think that's more important in the situation right now. I can hear quite a few people speaking. Can you go on mute, please? Okay. AI and ML are two words which is probably the biggest thing that you hear, the biggest geeky words that you hear these days. If you have noticed, AI and ML, the growth has been about 200%, 2000% in the last 4 years, which is phenomenal growth, and it's expected to keep growing in that space for some years to come. And on the APIs as well, APIs have been used for quite a while, but if you see the amount of usage of APIs, it's been a 200% growth in the last 7 to 8 years. So having said this, these are two very complementary topics, and my objective along with Veeresh is going to be to highlight to you on what the impact on QA would be when you bring in more of AI and machine learning and the APIs that come along with it. The way we structure, I'll give the initial gyan for about 10 minutes, and then Veeresh gets into the depth of these topics. So let's kickstart without any further delay. Okay. Firstly, thanks for the API Summit to have brought us here. It's always a pleasure to speak in conferences and share knowledge. And obviously, behind the scenes, I will try to network with some of you. It's always great to learn from you as well. A bit about us. 2 slides, one on us and one I will set the context on what we are going to speak on. I'm Arun. I'm the Director of Platform Engineering. Basically caters to all the developer tooling and platforms which help developers have a better experience within the organization. And I also have Veeresh along with me, who is the main speaker, but I'm sort of setting the context for him. Veeresh, would you like to introduce as well?
Yeah, thanks, Arun, and thanks to Patel, who introduced already a lot about us. A little bit. I manage a platform called as Reservation. So anyone who has taken a flight and every second booking that happens in the world, it happens through this platform. So this is a platform which processes around 30,000 transactions per second. When we speak about a platform, it talks about a lot of interfaces, a lot of APIs, which will be all around, where the internal systems and the external systems are going to use the services of it. So I'm going to share a bit of experience of something that has happened in the new age technologies that we all call AI/ML. It's no more a buzzword now. It's part of life everywhere, right? So let's have this discussion next 20 minutes. Over to you.
Thanks, Veeresh. So quickly setting context, Veeresh did touch upon, we are the travel domain leaders. So we provide software solutions for the travel domain. So if you have ever taken a flight, very likely you would have used some services behind the scenes of us. So having said that, because it's a B2B system, there is a lot of need for it to be stable. We need to also provide an ecosystem where others could develop along with us. And APIs have been something that we are leveraging very heavily for internal interaction and also for other, let's say, a startup who wants to consume our data and provide services around it. So it works in a similar model as what most of the other organization does. And Veeresh, having said the context, it's very important that you should know what we talk about as something that you could implement. It works, and it's something that you could try as well. So let's quickly touch upon the evolution of testing. As we say, we are also, though we are talking about AI and ML, we are also talking about what impact does it have on the testing ecosystem, right? So obviously, this is something that you all know. Testing probably started formally with the automobile industry. People were testing the products which was going into the market, how do they manually test, etc. Meanwhile, though it's not related 1980s, 1990s, but when we look at some of our own systems, we were depending on interaction through TTY or EDIFACT messages. Over a period of time, as testing evolved, we've moved from the manual testing phase to fairly bulky automation tools in the early 90s. And then eventually moved to open source frameworks probably in the early 2000s, right? Starting this century, we have probably looked at more automation tools, open source frameworks, and there are multiple, I mean, even the large leaders in the technology arena are providing services, something which we could consume. While this evolved parallelly, there has also been evolution on the interaction and APIs. I mean, API has progressed from the initial versions to a 2.0 to a 3.0, and obviously progressing further. And while in a similar fashion on the automation testing side, we are also looking at the DevOps evolution, a continuous CI/CD evolution, which basically means testing has to evolve along with it, right? And in the new age world, you have to probably not just test an application, you have to test the back end with the APIs. You also need to have, you probably need to test it on cloud and various other components. So the testing as a domain has evolved quite dramatically. So that's setting context on the testing side. Setting context on the AI/ML side, obviously there are three big jargons that you continue to hear on a regular basis. What's artificial intelligence? I would say that's the overarching mechanism where the computer or a technology tries to mimic human behavior, right? So that's where is the overarching thing. If you step one level lower, one level deeper, it's the subset is machine learning, where you are basically you're training the system to follow a particular pattern, follow a particular ways of instructions, etc. And that's how the machine starts learning. And then even deeper when you get is the next level is sort of deep learning. You put all these mechanisms in a human fashion to say this is what you need to learn, but the computer or the compute devices are or the networks are learning by itself based on other algorithms and designs that have been put in place, right? So that's what gets to the deep learning aspect. So having said the context, you also know AI and ML is really dramatically changing every single market segment. If you look at banking, I can give you an example of for banking in the financial domain, things like Paytm, PayPal, etc. are very heavy on APIs. They link with different systems, and obviously they are looking at fraud detection, risk detection, etc. on the AI/ML side. And if you get to retail e-commerce, this is quite dramatic, probably almost non-noticeable. I can give you an example. Let's say if you do a search and if the search page does not show, there's a backend system error, for example, and the search doesn't result anything, right? The AIML could kick in and say, oh, I would lose this customer. Let's throw him a spin the wheel game so that the person is engaged for the next 30 seconds. And while the person is engaged, I will go fix something at the back end because I've already got a report that there's something wrong. And voila, by the time you play the game, you get a 10% discount and you're back on their website. And you're now even more deep into the system because you don't want to get out because you've got a 10% discount now, right? But behind the scenes, system might have failed where they have quickly looked at fixing some of these problems. Similarly, on the marketing and the sales side, the biggest thing, I don't know if you've noticed, if you watch the cricket match, sorry, I have not seen it in cricket, but at least if you've started tracking football matches, the UEFA League, if you see the advertising boards on the ground, the advertisement changes on different channels. So it's the same board, it's the same ground, it's the same game, it's same live. But when people are watching it on, let's say, Star Sports, you see a different advertisement. If you're watching it on, let's say, HBO Sports, you're watching a different advertisement. All these are enabled by the artificial intelligence analytics, where let's say if it's an HBO, they are probably tracking, okay, there are too many kids who are watching the show, so let me show an advertisement which is more focused towards kids, right? And obviously in the travel and booking domain, that's something that I'll get into. Every aspect of your life is now touched by AI and ML, and AI and ML is consumed very heavily. I'll show you the AI, the API providers, for example, the Amazon Machine Learning, Microsoft Cognitive Services, Kairos is quite famous on the face recognition. IBM Watson, we have an example to share on the chatbots, natural language processing, etc. And Alexa, I'm sure many of you have this in your homes, where basically whatever you talk, it's being able to convert it into APIs, and the APIs are shared where you could use the same data for, let's say, an home automation, for any other kind of activities as well, right? So there is huge consumption of these APIs, which I started the presentation with, saying there's a 200-300% increase in the number of APIs, and all that I can say is it's only going to go higher and higher. And not letting go on what I shared, in the travel domain, obviously AI and ML is being used quite heavily. In the before scenario, there were people coming and checking manually. Now you have robots, moving robots. I mean, we saw it live in Apollo clinics in India. It's being seen in quite large airports and train stations elsewhere, where it comes, you do scanning, etc. Right? And similarly, on the travel domain itself, you also see the check-in, check-out, etc., all being done through digital devices, and these digital devices interact via APIs, right? And all of these is being provided in the new age digitization that we are coming forward with, right? So having said the context, I think I ran a little over, but let's get deep dive. Let's dive deep. Veeresh is an expert on this field. It's not Veeresh, but he has the technical depth on this area quite well. So over to you, Veeresh, to take this further.
Yeah, thanks, Arun. So let's get into the details, right? So before you saw about all the differences and the advantages or the facilities that we get, or the features that are provided by the AI or ML systems. Now let's understand quickly what is the difference between a traditional system and an AI system. Assuming that all of you come from an engineering background, assuming that all of you know how the systems are being built in. So few differences that I would like to quote here is on the features, right? Though the difference between a traditional system and AI system is traditional system is deterministic. That means it's based on the pre-programmed way or the design. The output of the system is defined. But in an AI system, it all depends about what is the input data that you provide, and what is the expectation that we have out of this, right? So algorithm can behave differently based on the data sets. Algorithm can behave differently based on the inputs that you have been providing. So that's the difference. The second is on the accuracy. So what could be the accuracy of a traditional system? It's again based on the design. It's based on the program which is being written, and successfully the outcome is defined based on this design. So then in terms of AIML systems, it depends on again on the training set and the data. Just remember how many times I've used the data and data here, right? And the third part, the programming. So what does a traditional system or a program define? There is an input, there is a logic which is been defined. So the logic processes the data, and then there is an output. But in terms of an AIML system, there is an input and the output, and that defines how a software function or an algorithm behaves. And fourth, in terms of errors, the errors or what to do when an error comes or what to do when a warning comes is defined very well by the programmer and very well by how a tester defines or a specification is written. But in terms of an AIML systems, it will all be self-healing. That means the system will understand what is the problem, and it could also recommend what are the changes that are required to be done. So bottom line, it's all about data. It's all about how you are going to test the data. So this becomes very critical and important for the quality assurance team when they get into testing of an AI platform. So now what's very important for the testing an AI platform? The data source. Where is this data coming in? And what is the data which is available to test in the pre-production systems, and what is there in the production systems? Whether the data remains the same. The data changes, the algorithm and the way in which the program behaves changes, right? The second is on the algorithm testing. As we define, it is very important for a tester to understand what's behind an algorithm. It may not be required to write an algorithm, but it is important to know what 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 does this each algorithm mean, whether we give a single input or multiple input, how the software is going to behave based on this algorithm part. And it also about the false negatives and the false positives which are going to be there. What is the cumulative accuracy that we can think about in getting with this algorithm testing? And third, you saw the wide variety of a sorry, can you go back to the previous one? So you saw the wide variety of APIs that could be used. It's very important to know that what is the power of these APIs and how these systems are designed with these APIs, how this could be integrated into the different systems so that it could provide or take care of the problems with the solutions. So it is important to have the integration testing, and then the system and the regression testing. As we know, it also happens in the traditional software, but even here, it's very, very important to have it. So next slide, Arun. So in the previous one, we saw that how to test an AI or ML system. So now we could also use an AI or ML system to do the testing. So you can, we thought about automation, but now we can also use the power of an AI ML to do the testing. So a lot of time which is spent on writing the test cases, this could be automated. The lot of time that goes into the visual validation of the UX and UI designs, this could be done with a very good algorithm and the data that could be provided for the testing. The reliability, we all know that, okay, many a times we are so good at all, but still there could be some issues where something could be missed. But with the power of an AML, that could also be a high reliable system or the testing that could be done. And in terms of the UI based systems, so earlier, whenever you have to do a testing, you need to have an UI system to make the testing. So now the AI gives with a lot of APIs and the features where you could not only test your UI system, plus also anything with the root cause analysis or anything that you could do for the system related issues of the system, right? The next slide. To sum up, what are the advantages of MML? So in both in the terms, it could save the time in the testing, it improved regression testing, the test process automation, and get a very good consistency in the testing. So one last thing that we all suffer and last systems that we do, and it comes often, is about the troubleshooting. And in order to find the root cause of an issue, the AI and ML systems are built so well, and with the latest algorithms and which you could tune in, you could find this root causes very well for this. Okay. Next. So with I spoke about AML, how it could be used and all this. Does it mean that is it the end for a traditional testing, the manual testing, or what will happen to the testing teams, right? So This is some live example that I'm sharing with. It also happened with my group when we thought about inculcating the AIML or we get into the application systems. There was a worry from the QA group on to say that whether all my skills and whatever I have developed so far, it's gonna no more be used, or whether these AML systems are going to replace the way in which we are going to testing. So where there is no human power or human skills are required, right? So what are some things that it goes into the thoughts? The next slide. So as I said, is it going to change the QA? Does it impact the testers? So what are the skills that are required to continue the testing? So what will happen to the QA roles which are currently having in place? So I mean, in the previous session, we heard about SOAP, REST APIs. That's something where the QAs went through a kind of a transformation to learn about this kind of an APIs. Now there is one more thing that is coming up. Does it mean that again, there is a lot of rush to learn about these new ways of doing the things and what we do, right? So this some things when they are going in. So can we go to the next one? So what is one thing that was done by the group is there is a requirement of a mindset change and a skill set change. The mindset change to understand and adapt, to say that okay, this is something which is coming in, we have to adapt according to these changes and learn. So there is a plethora of material and the forums like this where people talk about the AML, where people talk about how the testing has to be done, how the APIs have to be done. There is a different ways in which it could be learned. We can start on a very small scale, and that's how the group started to do this. So now I'll give a little detail about what I spoke about on, say, in terms of the detail and what happened with a case study in my group. So it's about, so we call it like a human touch to human tech, right? So as we saw and you heard from Arun saying, we are a travel domain company. So travel technology services. So whenever you make a booking, you make it through Yatra or any of the websites and all. So behind everything, there is Amadeus. Every second booking that happens in the world, it happens through Amadeus. The 56% of the booking that happens in India, it happens through Amadeus. When you the 30,000 transactions per second is something that the platform processes in 2019 when the travel industry was at its peak, right? Now, when we have this, there is also a need to provide the support whenever something goes wrong. So the booking could happen from the travel agents, or the bookings could also happen from the airline uh, technical staff or the customer support people. So when they try to contact Amadeus call centers, how can we automate? How can we reduce the number of hops that are happening within the systems? How can we increase the knowledge base that has been built? And how can we leverage the knowledge base which has been built in the system so that it could be built in a fast forward way, and it could help large scale customers, which are our travel agents or the airline agents, right? So next. So just to sum up, when we understood why these issues are happening, the 50% of the incidents or the problems that have been raised by our customer support are some basic questions. And these were all that could also be learned from the documents or the how-to guides which has been built in. And also, whenever we have these large systems, we also have to take care of the service level agreements. We also have to take care of getting back to the customers or the issues as soon as possible. So many cases where people come back and ask us. So it could be a working as design. That means the system is behaving as it is required, or if there is a clarification which has to be done. As I said, the end users were travel agents and the airline agents. So now what did we do? Next slide. So we came up with saying that, okay, let's embrace AML. Let's think about a chatbot, which could help us, which could be there on 24/7 supporting all the airline agents and the travel agents, and which could provide an instant interaction with the users. And it is something which could be trained well, where it could help and address the issues which have been frequently asking, so that the people who are supporting this customer support can focus on the major issues and happening in, right? So we try to understand and build down on saying what are these basic questions, what are the frequent questions, and try to segregate. And again, there was a kind of analytics which was built in the system to see which are the frequent questions or which area it is coming in and how this deployment should happen. and to do this. So this was integrated into our internal systems. These are our more immediate internal systems, which is available on the web, how the system could be used. Now, how did we go about it? Right. Next slide, please. So we call it as an Amanda. So Amanda is our chatbot, which was built in. And it was the first time for my entire group where they were working on a traditional large-scale application platform, which was built on C++, Linux, and Oracle. Earlier, it was on a mainframes, and suddenly the group has to transform into working on an AML and kind of a chatbot, right? Sorry. So now, what is required for a chatbot? So we saw someone has to access and ask these questions. That means there has to be an user interface. That means there has to be a front end, and then a kind of an AML which has to be built in. That means there has to be natural language processing. It could be Google Dialogflow, it could be Microsoft services, it could be anything. But here we selected Watson for our NLP. So then we know two of this, and then we need something in between which will orchestrate any kind of a questions that are coming in from the front end. That means any questions that are comes from a travel agent or an airline agent. First, it has to segregate on saying that where it has to go in, and second, it also has to build in a logic and internally use kind of a services to authenticate and build whether it's the right kind of a question which is coming in, the right user is asking these questions, and where it could be going across. Right. So then it also provided some web services with the SOAP, XML, and the REST JSON APIs. I'm not going to talk in detail about it. The last session covered very well on this. So this is about the APIs which were built, which is also required to be there. As I said, it's a platform in which it is getting integrated. Right. So this orchestrator also interacts with the IBM Watson, and it stores any conversation that happens from an user, from a question and answers that what goes in, and these conversations are stored in a database. We used here MongoDB, right? So whenever there was a question that was asked, that the answer comes in, then the APIs, it was all the text message that we use now. And future we want to integrate with the image processing as well as the voice recognition, the power of Watson that we want to use. But for now, it was with this. So now, as we said, it's a global platform and it has to be supported across different languages. So we leverage the power and we use the services and the APIs to support for 13 languages, and also all the web services were integrated from there.
Veeresh, time check. Keep a time check, please.
Yeah. So quickly, it completely works on something called as an intent and entity. So can we go to the next slide, please? So intent and entity, what is the intent? What does an user want to do? And what they are particularly asking a question. I'll tell you a simple example. I want to exchange my seat, or I want to make a book for a seat, right? So book is an intent and entity is a seat. So this entire NLP or NLU that works in, it's based on this entity and intents. And this is something which was very important for the testing team and the development teams to understand and see that how it has to work. So now when it comes to the testing aspects, the people have to look into around the various data sources and how this data has been fed in, and what are these intents and entities which has been built into the system. It was not a traditional system where we just test with the manual testing. The people also have to log into the IBM Watson. The QA team has to log into the IBM Watson and test and see that whether the entity and entities are similar, and whether it's the same data set which is used in the systems where the customers are accessing and what we have it in the QA systems, right? So can we go to the next one, please? So what is an impact? So it's all about the conversation. The people have to focus on the conversations, identify the frequently asked questions, think about the negative and the positive cases, and conduct various integration testing of these APIs, but the SOAP, REST, and the different APIs from the Watson. We should not forget about a performance testing or the security aspects of it, and also the error management into this. So more and more we train the bot, the more and more it is going to help. And we try to understand also the KPIs and the success matter for this according to the number of conversations that happened, according to right answers which the bot provided. And this was also something which was fed back to the QA team to say that how can we improve the accuracy of the system in answering this, right? Can we go to the next one, please? So with this, just to summarize, it's the impact of an AML or the APIs for the AML to the QA role. It's going to supplement what the QAs are doing in. So there are a lot of roles which are coming up. So in our group also, we are creating an AI test expert, a QA strategist, and the data scientist. It's all about the upskilling, unskilling or upskilling with whatever we know so far. Right. Next one. So just to summarize, just to end on this, it's all about automation. It's all about AML, as you heard from Arun. It's there behind. You buy something on an Amazon, you watch something on a Netflix, or take something on a television to do, or the news that we are trying to do this. It's all about behind that, and we all want everything to be quick, and that's how it's going to help us. So AML are the game changers, and that's the need for all of us to adapt to this. Next one. So just to end, we would like to say that don't be afraid of a change. It is leading you to be a new beginning. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank
I
you
don't know
so
whether.
much. Thank you. Sorry, Veeresh, you were saying something?
No, this one is very close to my heart because we built it right from the scratch. So that's where I took.
Yeah, being the change agents. Yeah, good one, good one. Really wonderful insights from both of you, Arun and Veeresh. Really nice content, and the case study is really amazing. We have a couple of questions for you. So Gaurav is asking that, can you give us an example of automation of writing test cases?
See, now we have not used, there are some systems which are being used with the Botanic and all that. We try to use with SOAP UI Shooter or the REST APIs that we have currently with this. So that I said, this is the next state for us to use in the group. The first was to test these applications with the AML. The next is to USML, AIML, and build the systems according to that. So currently use a robotic framework which is provided by the Selenium. Addition to that, which to do this testing. So I can give an example, but see again, whatever we quote here, we are not recommending any tool or a company here. We are just sharing our experience. So that's where I try to refrain. If you want to talk to me separately, I can give you some my own personal recommendations, but not from Amadeus. Okay.
Okay, no problem. I hope that answers your question, Gaurav. Probably we will take one more last question because by looking at the timeline, we need to restrict the questions. What are the tools used for testing such bots?
Okay, as I said, for now, we have used the robotic framework to do this testing. We have used the SOAP UI shooters to do this testing. So we are working on to say how we can automate or leverage the AML also to do this testing part of it. Right.
Okay, one question from my side. How you ensure that you are increasing the accuracy of chatbot responses? Because we are also having implementation of chatbots at our organizations, and it is really difficult to increase the accuracy side of it. So any quick tips on that side?
So it's again more and more training the bot, more and more it learns it, more and more it helps us.
Yeah.
The large
And,
scale deployment, it really helps. Yeah, Arun.
And also the leveraging services. I mean, we cannot be better individually than the ecosystem put together, right? So solutions provided by Google, IBM Watson, they are learning, improving their systems. So obviously to move to the latest versions and adopt to the latest APIs/products that they provide helps us improving the system. I mean, we cannot be better than them. Better than the whole ecosystem put together.
Okay, well said. So it's all about continuous learning and continuous improvement.
Yes.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. So with
Thank
this,
you.
I think we can wrap up this session. Thank you so much, Veeresh and Arun. This is the feedback URL which we have already shared under the chat conversation. Please feel free to submit your feedback. And I would like to give again thanks to both of them, Arun and Veeresh, for being with us today and for the wonderful knowledge sharing.